Hillsborough River in the eye of the storm, at least what's left of Irma's eye. No rain at the moment, but we know that the back half of this storm is coming and bringing a lot of wind and rain with it. And the rest of Tampa should know that as well. Let's go now to CNN's Stephanie Elam, who is also in Tampa. And Stephanie, before this calm period started, the wind was rough, the rain was heavy, and we know it's going to start again.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Victor. When I first got out here, I was soaking wet, and then as we got into this sort of eye part of the storm, my jacket is drying out. It's like I'm in a blow dryer, which is kind of nice because it's been kind of cold being out here just completely wet. But here's the other thing. We've never lost power here in downtown Tampa. I've been out here all night, and power has been here the entire time. The fear was that it might be out not just for a couple of days, but for weeks, depending on how severe it was. That's not the case. We haven't even seen it flicker. I did see early on in the night a couple of transformers blow, but overall, that hasn't been an issue here with the power. Now that the winds are starting to pick up, I've been watching these little puddles, and it's starting to pick up enough that's blowing bubbles off of them. So you're starting to feel a change here in the weather, where it's starting to feel like, okay, maybe this next wave is starting to come towards us. The wind kicking up. It's been very calm out here for a few minutes. We also know that here in the city of Tampa, they were not responding to emergency calls, but it looks like they're making some concessions that things have been calm, because I just saw a city of Tampa ambulance just drive down the street. Other than that, the streets have been cleared. People have been staying off. We saw a few people out, but now people have been staying off the streets here in Tampa, which is what they wanted. The mayor saying that there's a curfew enacted at 6 p.m. last night to keep people off the street. They're saying it still could not be safe conditions to be out here. I just went to go check on the Hillsborough River just because I wanted to see from what I saw earlier today. I took well, I should say today. It's today to me because I haven't gone to sleep. But for everybody else, it's yesterday. But I took a walk along the river, and you could see how far that water was being pulled out. It was quite phenomenal, but also quite dangerous, because people, you don't want to be down there when the water comes back. But I can tell from where I saw it earlier that the water is starting to come back into the river here. So,
like, you stay behind during these storms. Tell us what motivates you to do what you do.
Yeah, so, you know, I didn't even stay behind. I came all the way from Austin, Texas, where I was just chasing Harvey a couple of weeks ago, and it's for me, it's all about the passion. You know, you got to have some passion in life, and I love following the storms and witnessing the history that unfolds from these storms, and measuring you know, the pressure and the wind speeds here, and just overall, just taking the documentation of the storm, documenting for the world, and, you know, potentially for people in the future that would like to see what the storm actually did.
You know, it's too soon. I've said this morning that it's too soon for the people here in Tampa and on the West Coast to say that they dodged a bullet, to use the old cliche, with Irma going east of Tampa instead of staying out in the Gulf and on the West Coast. But how important was that shift late in the day? Yeah,
so, you know, generally the worst side of the storm is going to be that eastern side of the hurricane. You know, if this thing had stayed out over the water, it would continue to maintain its strength. Potentially could have intensified. You know, with the eye moving a little bit inland, you don't have as much surge getting pushed up onto shore, and so that was another bullet that was dodged with the surge. I don't think we got the surge quite as we were expecting. I know here in Fort Myers, I waited in the parking garage for a while. I wanted to avoid any kind of surge, and I never actually saw any surge come up here into downtown Fort Myers. So, you know, that was quite a bullet being dodged there. And I'm just kind of waiting things out right now for daylight to go check out to see what kind of damage actually happened around here in Fort Myers. And I see plenty of tree damage and roof damage happening around here in downtown. But, you know, the buildings here in downtown are they're pretty well built. So I expect maybe if I get into, you know, away from the downtown where there's some smaller buildings, I might see a little bit more damage.
Yeah, we're all waiting for the sun to come up to see exactly what will be the legacy of Irma for this part of the state. The storm chaser, Aaron J. Jack, thanks for being with us, and stay safe as you head. There are two reasons. First, because there was a mandatory evacuation of mobile homes across this county. The concern here that those rough winds that came through would rip those apart and be a threat to the people who live there. Also, the low-lying areas around Tampa Bay, around the river here, on the islands, would cause some major flooding, and that storm surge that would make it almost impossible for people to get out of the way of the water in time. Now, in the discussion of storm surge, what we're seeing here, several feet, maybe 5 or 6, not the 15 feet that was expected or feared when Hurricane Irma was still a Category 4, Category 3, and potentially was heading up the West Coast. The mayor here said that this city was about to be punched in the face if that was going to happen. That did not happen, but still, we don't know exactly how bad the damage has been. We'll get more about that as the sun comes up this morning.
Massive undertaking, but so far, it's gone very well.
And in most of these cities in the direct path of Irma, we're still about 2 hours away from curfews being lifted. What's your primary concern once the sun begins to come up around that time, 6 o'clock Eastern time? What is first?
Well, I think the primary concern is people might take it for granted that they can begin to immediately go out. They need to listen to their local authorities and make sure that they're given the green light before they begin to make their way back to their homes and back to their communities to see exactly what damage is done and what their needs will be. The Red Cross is going to be here to continue to support them.
It hasn't gotten as much attention because we have been so focused on where it made landfall, which was about just over 12 hours ago, right around Marco Island. We've talked about the storm surge in Tampa, but really this northeastern quadrant where we knew, or I've mentioned, it is the most dynamic portion of the hurricane. And in fact, that's what we're seeing now. There is a tornado watch in effect. We're seeing these tornado warnings pop up. There have been damage reports that have come in that there are theories that they were actually tornadoes. But what is interesting now is we're seeing a different dynamic. The southern edge of there is a tornado watch in effect. We're seeing these tornado warnings pop up. There have been damage reports that have come in that there are theories that they were actually tornadoes. But what is interesting now is we're seeing a different dynamic. The southern edge of